Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Maths Made Easy with Terry in 10 minutes. So we're talking about factorizing or solving cubic function or equation using factorization by common factors method. And this is the first method. I'm going to talk about other methods in the subsequent series. All right, so please, if you've not subscribed, liked, or share, I don't know what you're waiting for. And don't forget to click on the notification bell so that when I post new videos, you'll be the first person to know. So please make sure you review previous video because this series is designed such that the next video is built on the understanding of the previous one. So you have to make sure you review. All right, so just a quick reminder, all right? Just to remind us, I told you the standard form of a cubic equation is ax cubed plus bx squared plus cx plus d is equal to 0. So this is what we call the standard form, all right? So this is the standard form for cubic functions, all right? Now, a is the cubic coefficient, b is the quadratic coefficient, c is the linear coefficient, and d is the free term, okay? Now, let's jump straight into this. Now, when you want to factorize or solve using this method is very limited. And in order to solve this, you must have the d, okay, must have a value. All right, so I'm going to just write it down because I'm aware some of us take notes. So this method is limited. So the keyword is limited. So what I'm saying is that in most cases, it can't solve all types of cubic function. In some cases, it can. In some cases, it cannot. All right? But before you use this method, D must have a value. Okay? D must have a value. So that means in this case, D must never be equal to what? 0. So that means you can't have something like 3x cubed plus 5x squared plus 6x, for instance. And you can't use this method here. Or maybe you cannot have, let's say, 3x cubed plus 6x. You can't use it here because the value of D in these cases are what? 0. So let's move on. So how do I solve this? There are 7 rules or 7 steps to solve this, okay? There are 7 rules or 7 steps. The first one that you have to do is that you have to rearrange the equation in standard form. So any equation you were given, the first thing you have to do is to rearrange the equation in standard form. Okay? So when I say standard form, you know what I mean? I'm talking about it has to be in the form of ax cubed plus bx squared plus cx plus d. But you need to remember that d must not be equal to 0. Okay, so the d must not be equal to 0. All right, so d cannot be equal to 0. Now, number 2 is that after that, you then have to find the common factors. So you have to find the common factors between, so remember, we are now having it in an ax cubed, bx squared, and we have cx plus d. So now you have to then find the common factors between ax cubed and bx squared, okay? So you have to find the common factor between ax cubed and bx squared, okay? And you hence you what? You factorize. So when you find the common factor between ax cubed and bx squared, then you factorize. Then the next one, you then have to find the common factors between cx and d, and as well you factorize. So next one, you then find the common factors. Don't worry, I'm going to solve some questions, okay? We're going to solve some questions together. So between cx and d, okay? So find the common factors between cx and d, and hence, when you're done with that, you factorize. Number 4, when you've done that, But before we go to number 4, I think this would be a very good point for me to make this, because at this point in step 2, we factorize ax cubed and bx squared, and also we factorize cx and d, okay? Now, when you're done with step 3, the brackets you have after factorizing the first two and the second two must be equal, okay? Now, if after factorizing both of them and you notice that the brackets you have are not the same, then you can use this formula to solve it, okay? So I'm going to write it down. So note that the bracket, okay? So in this case, that the bracket you're going to get in step 3, okay, must, okay? The keyword here is must. Okay, the bracket you have here must be the same, with step 2, all right? So that means the bracket after factorizing step 3 must be the same. And if they are not, okay, if they are not the same, you will have to use another method. So if they are not the same, you will have to use another method, all right? So when you're done with step 3 and you found out that, oh, okay, they are the same, good. Then number 4, you move to step 4. What you then have to do is that you have to add step 2 and step 3 together, okay? So you have to add step 2 and step 3 answer. So what you got from step 2, you add it to what you get from step 3. Then after doing that, number 5, you then take one of the brackets. So you take one of the brackets as a representative. You take one of the bracket as a representative and you put the elements outside, or you can put the outside element. Which other one? Okay, you put the outside element into the other bracket. So when you've done that, so that means what you will notice is that you know that one of the brackets will be a quadratic equation, all right? Okay, so you have to know that one of the brackets will be a quadratic equation. So the keyword is going to be a quadratic what? Equation. When you're done with step 5, step 6, then you then factorize the quadratic equation. So I have a video on how to factorize quadratic equation. I talked about the several methods of doing that. So just go to the playlist, just search factorization, okay? And some of the videos will come up. Just watch them. We have difference of two squares. We have when a is equal to 1, when this method, or trinomials when a is not equal to 1. We have several of them, okay? And I showed you how to factorize. So please go back and look at the video. So then after that, you then factorize the quadratic equation. Okay? So when you now the factorize quadratic equation, you just factorize it normally, the way you would have done it normally, okay? And after that, you then rewrite the factorization, okay, in step 5. So, and finally, You then equate each bracket to 0 if you're asked to solve, okay? You then equate each bracket to 0. And solve for x, okay? So if the question did not ask you to solve, you stop in step 6, but if it asks you to solve, you then have to go to what? Step 7. All right, so let's pick an example, okay? So let's pick an example and we'll apply these 7 rules to solve it, all right? So let's have this one. Let's assume that you were told to factorize, okay? So let's say factorize or solve. We have x cubed minus 4x squared minus 9x is equal to minus what? 36. Okay, so we're asked to factorize or solve this, depending on what they ask you to do. Now, the first step is that you have to rearrange the equation in standard form in the form of ax cubed plus bx squared plus cx plus d, and d must not be equal to 0. So let's go. So step 1, we have to rearrange this. And what I'm going to do, I'll take minus 36 to the other side, and we have x cubed minus 4x squared minus 9x plus 36 is equal to 0. So you can see we have a d, so that means our d is not equal to 0. So that means we can use this method. Step 2. Okay. Now, if you go to step 2 said you need to find the common factors between ax cubed and bx squared and hence factorize. So we have to now pick the common factors between these ones here. So this is the first 2. All right. So what is common between x cubed minus 4x squared? X squared, and we're now left with what? X minus 4, right? So good. The next one, which is step 3, okay? Now, step 3, we'll have to find the common factors between cx and d. So cx and d is going to be between minus 9x and plus 36. So we have minus 9x plus 36. What is common between both of them? We have minus 9, and we don't have x. This will be minus 4 because minus 9 times x will give you minus 9x. Then minus 9 times minus 4, are you seeing it? Will give you plus 36. All right. Now we're done with that. Now let's go back. So to step 4 now, all right? So for step 4, what would that be? So step 4. Now step 4 said, when you're done with that, add step 2 and 3 together, all right? So let's go. So step 2, we have x squared x minus 4 plus minus 9 x minus 4. Now, plus times minus will give you minus, so it's going to give you x squared x minus 4 minus 9 x minus 4. Now, I made a mention here in step 3 that the brackets in step 2 and 3 must be the same. So if you go back, you can see that the bracket we're having here and the bracket you're having here is the same. Also, you can see that the brackets you're going to have in step 4 definitely will be the same. If, for instance, you're solving and you notice that after factorizing in step 2 and factorizing in step 3, the answer you're getting from step 2 is completely different to the answer you're getting from step 3. I'm talking about in terms of the bracket. Then you can't use this method. You have to go back and check again, all right? So that'll be that. So the next step is that we'll now go to step 5. Okay. Then step 5, we were told then that we then have to take one of the bracket as a representative and put the other outside element in the other bracket. So that means we're going to take one of these brackets, which is x minus 4, and the ones we have outside, we're having x squared minus 9. And I told you as well that you should notice as well that when you now look at it, you will see that one of the bracket will be a quadratic equation, all right? So you can see that this is a quadratic equation, x squared minus 9. Good. Now step 6 now said that we need to factorize the equation, quadratic equation bracket. So the quadratic equation bracket we are having, step 6, is what? We're having x squared minus 9. Now, if you remember, this is similar to difference of 2 squared, which is a squared minus b squared. And I told you when you have a squared minus b squared, it's a minus b, a plus b. So you can also write this as well. This can be written as x squared minus 3 squared, because 3 squared is written as 9. And it's exactly the same thing as a squared minus b squared. So we can now write this as a minus 3 and a plus what? 3. Oh, I beg your pardon. To be x minus 3, not a. So it's going to be x minus 3, and we have x plus 3. Okay? Then when you're done with that, step 7. Okay? Step 7, we now say that you then have to what? You then have to okay, step 6, we're not done. It says factorize quadratic equation normally and rewrite the factorization in step 5, okay? So step 5, we have to rewrite factorization in step 5. So instead of having x squared minus 9, I'm going to replace it with x minus 3 and x plus 3. And I'm going to bring down the x minus 4. Are you seeing it? So it's being factorized now. Now, step 7 said that we then have to equate each bracket to 0 to solve for x. So it's going to be x minus 4 is equal to 0. So therefore, x will be equal to 4. Then you equate the next bracket. X minus 3 is equal to 0. It's going to be x equal to 3. And this is going to be the answer twice, because the same answer you get here is going to be the same answer. Sorry. Nope, because this is x minus 3. That's x plus 3. Okay, so the next one is going to be x plus 3 is equal to 0, because the first one was minus, the second one is plus. You take this there, so therefore x is going to be minus 3. So that means the answer for this, x is going to be 4, 3, or what? Minus 3. And that will be that for that. So you basically just follow the rules and you'll be able to solve it. All right, okay, so let me pick one more example for this to make it easier, all right? So let's assume we have this example of x cubed, all right, plus 2x squared is equal to 4x plus 8. And you were told to solve for x, or you were told to factorize, dependent, okay? So we're gonna first start with step 1. So step 1, what do we need to do? We have to what? We rearrange the equation in standard form. So we have to make it look like this, all in one side. So what I'm going to do then, I'm going to take all this 4x plus 8 to the other side. So it's going to become x cubed plus 2x squared. Let me write this down so to be easy. So I'll take all this to this side. So it's going to be x cubed plus 2x squared minus 4x minus 8 is equal to 0. So now we're in standard, we'll have it in standard form now. Now, the next step, which is going to be step 2, let's see, which is the factorizing bit, okay? So we have to find the common factors between ax cubed and bx, and hence we then factorize. So we'll have to find the factorizing, the common factors, I beg your pardon. So we're going to do that together. So what is common between x cubed and x squared? So if you have a look at it, so we have x cubed plus 2x squared. What is common? X squared is common, and you have x plus 2. All right. Now we'll do for the next one. We'll do for minus 4x plus 8. That's step 3. All right. You factorize that. Minus 4x plus 8. So if you go to the third step, it said you have to find the common factors between cx and d, and hence you factorize. So we're going to do that together. So we have minus 4x minus 8. Now, what is common between both of them is minus 4, okay? And we have x plus 2. Now, you can see at this stage, the value we have in the bracket here, x plus 2, is exactly the same, the value we have in the bracket here, which is also x plus 2. So that means we can then proceed. Like I always say, if you solve this and the answer you get here is different from the answer you get here, that means you can't use this method. You have to use another different method to solve this. All right. So we've done that now. So what next should we do then? We then have to then go to step 4. All right. We have to go to step 4. Now in step 4, we have to add step 2 and 3 together. So the answers we got from step 2 and 3, we need to add them together. So step 2, we had x squared, x plus 2, plus step 3, we had minus 4, x plus 2. Now, plus times minus will give you minus, so it's going to give you x squared, x plus 2, minus 4, x plus 2. Okay? Now, I've added them together. Then step 5, we have to take one of the bracket as a representative and put the other elements, the other outside element into the other bracket, okay? We need to know that one of them will be a quadratic equation. So let's go. So we're going to take one of the elements, that's step 5. We're having x plus 2. Are you seeing it? The other element we are having here is x squared minus 4. So you can see that this is a what? Quadratic equation. So it's the same thing. We have to factorize the quadratic equation bracket normally and rewrite the factorization. So step 6, we have x squared minus 4. Are you seeing it? So I taught you how to factorize, and we've talked about this loads of time, okay? So please go back and have a look. So what this is, x squared minus 4 is the same thing as writing it as x squared minus 2 squared. And this will be what we call the difference of 2 squares. So the difference of 2 squares, I told you a squared minus b squared is written as a minus b, a plus b. So that means we can now write this as what? X minus 2, x plus 2. Are you seeing it? So that's the difference of 2 squares. All right. Then we then have to rewrite step 5. That is part of step 6. So step 6 said that after you've done that, you have to rewrite the answer from step 5. Okay? So let's go to step 5. So step 5, so instead of us having x squared minus 4, we're going to have x minus 2, x plus 2. So it's going to be x plus 2. Then we're going to write x minus 2, x plus 2. Are you seeing it? Then step 7, we have to equate each of them to be equal to 0. So because they have the same thing, all right, I can rewrite it as x plus 2 squared and x minus 2. If the question was that I have to leave it as a factorization in a factorization form, I'm going to stop here, okay? Or I can write it like this, the other part as well. So you can write it like this, or you can write it like this. They're all the same thing. But if the question was that you have to solve for x, you then have to equate each of these to be equal to 0. So that means we're going to have x minus 2 is equal to 0. So therefore, x will be equal to 2. And we have x plus 2 is equal to 0. So therefore, x is going to be equal to minus 2. Because it was repeated twice, I'm going to write this is what? You get the same answer twice. So therefore, x will be equal to 2 or what? Minus 2. Okay? And that is the answer you will get for that. Okay? So that is it. You follow the steps and you should get what? The same answer. All right, so let me just pick one more example and I will call it a day for this. Then we'll go to the second method. Okay, let me just pick one more example so you can solve this. So let's say we have 3x cubed plus 6x squared plus 4x plus 8. Okay, so what you can do, you can pause the video here and see and solve it on your own and see if you get the same thing I got. Then you come back and just check it. Okay, so step 1. So this has already been written for us in standard form already, so it's easy. So it's 3x cubed plus 6x squared plus 4x plus 8 is equal to 0. Sorry, I forgot to write the 0 here. Now, then, step 2, okay? Step 2 we have to then factorize. So we have to factorize the 3x cubed plus 6x squared. Now, what is common between both of them? We have is 3x squared, and you have x plus 2. Step 3, we then have to factorize this. We have 4x plus what? Plus 8. Now, what is common between both of them? We have 4, and that is x plus 2. So at this stage, you can see that we have x plus 2 here, and we have x plus 2 here. And with this now, you can see now that, okay, that we can proceed with this method. So that means I can now add both of them together, which is step 4. Okay, so step 4, I can then add both of them. So it's going to give me 3x squared, x plus 2 plus 4x plus 2. And if you open it, because it's positive, it's going to become 3x squared, x plus 2 plus 4x plus 2. All right? Now, when you've done that, I believe that was step 5. We now have to take one of the representative and also the outside element together, and one of them will be quadratic equation. So we're going to have 3x squared plus 4, and we have x plus 2. As you can see, that, sorry, that was step 5, right? Yes, so I need to write this as step 5. So I light all this, bring it down. Oh, all right, get this. I'm trying to get all of it. Oh, it's not working. Let me just clean this. Okay, better to clean. All right, then step 5 to make it easier to understand. So we're gonna have 3x squared plus 4, and we have x plus 2. Okay, so one of them is a quadratic equation. So step 6, we have to then factorize the quadratic equation as we normally would have done. Okay, so now we have 3x squared plus 4. Then step 6, we have 3x squared plus 4. Are you seeing it? So you take this to the other side, equal to 0. So we have 3x squared is equal to minus 4. Divide both sides by what? By 3. And you now have x squared is equal to minus 4 over 3. To remove the square root, the square, you find the square root of both sides, so plus or minus. So x is going to give us plus or minus square root of minus 4 over 3. Now, in quadratic equation, I told you that when you have a minus under the square root sign, there'll be no real solution. Okay, so that means this will have no real solution or no real root. But we'll talk about imaginary numbers later. Okay, we'll talk about that later. Okay, but I have that in another different videos where we'll talk about how to solve this kind of where you have the square root to be minus. Okay, but for in this video, I'm not going to talk about that. So I'm going to just write no solution. So that means there's only one solution we have here. Okay, so that means if you are asked to factorize, the final answer, you will leave it as, you have to leave it like this, okay? So if you're asked to factorize, the final answer will be just like this, okay? So it's gonna be 3x squared plus 4, okay? And we have x plus 2. But if you're asked to solve for x, what you just do, you just only equate x plus 2 to be equal to 0. So therefore, x will be equal to minus 2. So if you are meant to solve for x, the only real solution you're going to get is when x is equal to what? Minus 2. All right, so that will bring us to the end of this video. Okay, so please go back, have a look, and review the 7 steps on how to solve it. And also, don't forget that when we're talking about using this method, the standard form of any cubic function is ax cubed plus bx squared plus cx plus d. And don't forget that this method is limited. Okay, you can solve most questions with it. And d must have a what? A value. So it's key that d must have a value. Now the next method, with method 2, will be how to use factor theorem and long division. Okay, factor theorem and long division method is one of the widely used method. It can solve most or virtually all types. Okay, in most cases, it can solve most cubic functions. All right, but except in some cases, and we're going to talk about that in the next video. Okay, so if you have any question or comment you don't understand, please let me know. You can send me an email. My email is on the channel, or you can drop me a message in the comment section, and I'll get back to you. All right. Thank you very much. Have a nice day, and I'll see you in the next video. See you soon.